The galaxy fell silent after the 3 stars died. For 6 days, no government issued statements. No species sent diplomatic messages. The entire galactic community was in shock. Humanity had done the impossible. They had killed stars. 3 entire civilizations were now refugees, homeless and broken, scattered across friendly territories. On the 7th day, the Galactic Council called an emergency meeting at Axiom Prime. Every species sent their representatives. This time, when Ambassador Yuna Choi walked into the chamber, no one avoided her eyes. They stared at her with open fear. The council chamber was circular, with representatives sitting in tiered rows. Yuna took her place at the center podium. The silence was heavy, oppressive. Finally, the council chairman, an ancient being from the Velk species, spoke. Ambassador Choi, humanity has committed an act of unprecedented destruction. You have made 8 billion beings homeless. You have destroyed 3 homeworlds. You have killed billions who could not evacuate. The council demands an explanation. Yuna stood calmly. Earth was attacked without provocation. 3 alien species formed a secret alliance and launched a fleet of 2,000 warships against our colonies. They killed 152,000 of our people, including children. We defended ourselves. We gave the attackers 72 hours to evacuate their civilians. We could have given them 0 warning and killed everyone. Instead, we saved 8 billion lives. You want an explanation? Here it is. Don't attack Earth. You could have simply destroyed their fleets, the chairman said. Why destroy their homes? Because destroying fleets wasn't enough. 15 years ago, we destroyed 3 Corvan fleets. What did that accomplish? It made the galaxy fear us enough to form alliances against us. It made them want to strike before we became too strong. We needed to send a message that would last forever. That message is now written in 3 dead stars. A Talrec refugee representative stood up, her body shaking with rage and grief. You murdered our world. Our history, our culture, our home. How is that different from genocide? We gave you time to evacuate, Yuna replied. We saved your people. Your culture survives in your survivors. Your history survives in your archives. If we wanted genocide, we would have given you 0 warning and killed everyone. Instead, we gave you a chance. You lost your home, but you kept your lives. Be grateful you got even that much. Grateful? The Talrec spat. My children will grow up homeless because of you. My children would have grown up dead because of you, Yuna shot back. You attacked us. We warned you what would happen. You ignored the warning. Now you live with the consequences. The Corvan representative stood up. He was old, a survivor of the Vela incident 15 years ago. Fellow council members, I have something to say. 15 years ago, my people made the same mistake that Talrec, Vryn, and Moth made last week. We attacked humanity expecting an easy victory. We were wrong. Earth destroyed 3 of our fleets and shattered our moon. 50,000 Corvan soldiers died. We learned a harsh lesson that day. Humanity fights like cornered predators. They are peaceful until threatened, but once threatened, they will do anything to survive. I stood before this council 15 years ago and told you what happened. I warned you not to provoke Earth. Many of you did not listen. You thought the Corvans were weak or unlucky. Now 3 more species have learned the same lesson we learned. How many more will it take before the galaxy understands? Leave humanity alone. It's that simple. The chamber was quiet. Then the Vryn representative spoke, her voice bitter. What's to stop them from attacking us next? If they can kill stars, they can destroy any of us at will. Yuna pressed a button, and a holographic display appeared above the chamber. It showed a star map with 27 points marked in red. These are the locations of our remaining quantum disruption devices. Each one is hidden in a stealth satellite near strategic systems across the galaxy. They are inactive but ready to deploy in 48 hours if needed. This is not a threat. This is information. Earth has the capability to erase any civilization that attacks us. But we will only use these weapons in self-defense. We don't want your territories. We don't want to conquer you. We don't even want to talk to you. We just want to be left alone. How do we know you won't use them anyway? A delegate asked. Because we've had these devices ready for months and we only used them after being attacked. If we wanted to conquer the galaxy, we would have done it already. We have the weapons. We have the technology. But we don't have the desire. Humanity's only goal is to live in peace in our corner of space. Give us that and we'll never bother you. The council chairman stood. And if we refuse to accept these terms? If we demand you dismantle these weapons? Yuna smiled coldly. Then you're welcome to try. Bring your fleets. Bring your armies. Try to force us. See what happens. We've shown you 3 times now what happens when you attack Earth. How many more demonstrations do you need? The chamber fell silent again. Everyone understood the reality. Earth had become too powerful to fight. The only option was to leave them alone. After hours of debate, the Galactic Council reached a decision. They voted to recognize human space as sovereign and untouchable. A 500 light-year exclusion zone was established around Earth's territory. Any ship entering without permission would be destroyed, no questions asked. Earth would join no alliances, sign no treaties, and pay no reparations. They would exist alone, unbothered, and watching. Una accepted the terms on behalf of humanity. As she left the chamber, she heard whispers behind her. Monster. Murderer. Demon. She didn't care. Earth was safe. That was all that mattered. 10 years passed. The galaxy adjusted to the new reality. The Talrek, Vryn, and Moth refugees were absorbed into other civilizations. They became cautionary tales. Stories parents told their children about what happens when you provoke humanity. Trade routes were adjusted to avoid the human exclusion zone. No species dared to test Earth's boundaries, Admiral. Jiho Kang retired from the military and moved to Mars. He lived in a small house, near the rebuilt Platform 7. His daughter Minji lived nearby with her husband and 2 children. She had left the Marines after the war, unable to continue fighting. She became a teacher instead, educating the next generation about the cost of war. Jiho visited her every week. They would sit on her porch and watch the sunset over the red Martian landscape. Sometimes they talked about the war. Sometimes they sat in comfortable silence. Do you regret it? Minji asked him one evening. What we did? Jiho thought for a long moment. I regret that it was necessary. But I don't regret the decision. We saved humanity. That's what matters. Even if it cost us our souls were always the price of survival, Minji. Someone has to carry that burden. It might as well be us. Dr. Hannah Park continued working for Project Horizon, but she shifted her focus from weapons to defenses. She couldn't bring back the 3 dead stars, but she could ensure Earth never needed to kill again. The guilt followed her everywhere. She saw those 3 dying suns in her dreams every night. Engineer Taeyang Oh worked alongside her. Together they dismantled 12 of the remaining quantum disruption devices, leaving only 15 active. It was a gesture of goodwill, though few aliens appreciated it. 15 devices was still enough to destroy 15 civilizations. Captain Doyen Lee continued flying, but the joy was gone. He led training missions preparing the next generation of pilots for a war that hopefully would never come. He visited Lieutenant Minwoo's grave every month, wondering if all the medals and honors were worth the cost. Ambassador Yuna Choi returned to Earth and retired from diplomacy. She bought a small house by the ocean and lived quietly. The galaxy knew her name. They feared her. But on Earth, she was just an old woman who spent her days reading and watching the waves. She never spoke publicly about the war. When asked, she would only say, "We did what we had to do." President Hyun Kim served out his term, then retreated from public life. He wrote a memoir, but it was never published. In it, he detailed every decision, every casualty, every sleepless night. He wanted history to remember not just what happened, but why it happened and what it cost. He died 15 years after the war, still carrying the weight of those 3 dead stars. Colonel Sora Bay's intelligence network became the most feared organization in the galaxy. Every species knew that Earth was always watching, always listening. Her network prevented 3 more attempted attacks over the years, stopping them before they could begin. She never retired. She worked until the day she died, believing that vigilance was the price of peace. 20 years after the war, a new species made first contact with the Galactic Council. They were young, enthusiastic, and naive. During their orientation, they asked about the empty zones on the star charts where 3 civilizations used to live. The council representative, an old Velk diplomat, told them the story. He explained how humanity had warned the galaxy twice. He showed them recordings of the 3 dying stars. He described the 8 billion refugees and the 152,000 human dead. Are humans really that dangerous? The young alien asked. The Velk representative thought carefully before answering. Humans are not dangerous. They are peaceful. They create beautiful art. They explore the cosmos with wonder. They laugh and love and dream. The red dust of Mars swirled around Captain Day Kim's boots as he stood at the edge of the dig site. He had been coming to this canyon for 3 months now, and every day looked the same. Red rocks, red sand, red sky. Nothing ever changed on Mars except today. "Captain, you need to see this." Hannah Park's voice crackled through his helmet radio. She was the team's lead scientist, the one who could read ancient languages like other people read morning news. Her excitement was rare, which meant something important had happened. Day climbed down into the excavation pit where Hannah stood beside something that definitely did not belong on Mars. It was a smooth, black surface that seemed to drink in light. The rock around it looked melted, as if something extremely hot had been buried here long ago. "What am I looking at?" Day asked. "A vault," Hannah said, her hands shaking as she brushed away more dust. "And it's old. Really old. Older than Earth's oldest pyramids. Older than human civilization itself." Tae Choi, the team's engineer, was already setting up scanning equipment around the strange object. He was young but brilliant, the kind of person who could fix anything with spare parts and determination. "Captain, this thing is giving off a low-level energy signature. It's like it's waiting for something." "Waiting for what?" Dee asked. "For us, maybe?" Tae shrugged. "The energy pattern matches human neural activity. It's almost like it recognizes we're here." That made no sense. Humans had only reached Mars 200 years ago. Whatever this thing was, it had been here for millions of years. How could it possibly recognize humans? Ari Shin, the team's pilot and security officer, appeared at the edge of the pit. She was always watching, always ready for danger. "Captain, I don't like this. We should report to Earth Command before we touch anything." "We will," Day said. "But first, let's see what we're dealing with." It took them 6 hours to safely excavate around the vault. When they finally exposed the entire structure, it was the size of a small house, perfectly smooth and covered in symbols that seemed to shift when you looked at them directly. Hannah spent 2 hours photographing and analyzing the symbols. "It's a language," she finally said, "but not like any I've seen. It's like the symbols are teaching me how to read them as I look at them. That shouldn't be possible." "Can you open it?" Day asked. Hannah pressed her gloved hand against one of the symbols. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire vault began to glow with soft blue light. A section of the wall dissolved like morning mist, revealing a dark entrance. "Everyone stay behind me," Ari said, her weapon ready as she entered first. Day followed, with Hannah and Tae close behind. Inside, the vault was larger than it should have been. The walls glowed with the same blue light, and in the center of the room stood a crystal pillar about the height of a person. As they approached, the crystal began to pulse, and suddenly the room filled with light. A hologram appeared before them. It showed a creature that was almost human-like, but not quite. Taller, with longer limbs and larger eyes, its skin seemed to shimmer with colors that had no names. "This is a message to whoever finds this vault," the hologram spoke, and somehow they all understood it despite never hearing the language before. "We are the Velthera. We came to this galaxy 3 million years ago, and we thrived for 1 million years. Then we faced something we could not defeat. We call it the Devourer Swarm, and it consumed our entire civilization. Before we died, we recorded our knowledge, our warnings, and our prophecies. We left these vaults on 100 worlds, hoping someone worthy would find them." The hologram changed, showing images of beautiful cities crumbling under attack from dark, insect-like machines that swarmed like locusts. Day felt his stomach turn as he watched entire planets being consumed. "We studied the patterns of life across the galaxy," the Velthera continued. "We learned to predict which species would rise and which would fall. We recorded prophecies of 1,000 possible futures, but one prophecy stood out among all others. One species that would rise from a blue world covered in water. A species born from conflict, shaped by struggle, defined by their refusal to surrender. They would be warriors, explorers, and dreamers. They would reach the stars despite countless obstacles. And when the Devourer Swarm returned, as it always does, this species would face it with courage we could never possess." The hologram showed images of Earth, blue oceans, green continents, white clouds. Then it showed human history. Ancient warriors, medieval battles, world wars, space rockets, colonies on Mars and beyond. "Every detail matches," Hannah whispered. "They're describing humanity. The young species will face their greatest trial," the Velthera hologram said. "The Devourer Swarm will return when they reach the stars. Many will die. Worlds will burn. But if this species stays true to their nature, If they fight with the courage and creativity that defines them, they will ascend. They will become what we could not. They will become the galaxy's protectors. The hologram faded, leaving them in silence. Day's mind raced. This was impossible. Some alien civilization predicted humanity's rise 3 million years ago. Predicted their wars, their struggles, even their arrival on Mars. Captain, Tay said quietly, the vault is releasing more data. Technical specifications, weapon designs, historical records. It's giving us everything the Velthara knew. Why? Ari asked. Why give all this to us? Hana was reading the flowing symbols on the walls, her eyes wide. Because the prophecy has a deadline. The Devourer swarm returns in cycles. The Velthara calculated when it would come back based on galactic patterns. She turned to face them, her face pale. It's coming back now, soon, maybe months, maybe a year. But it's coming, and we're the ones who have to stop it. Day looked at his team. They were just 4 people, standing in an ancient vault on a dead planet, being told that humanity's greatest enemy was approaching, an enemy that had destroyed a civilization far more advanced than Earth had ever been. But Day was a soldier. He had fought in the colony wars, survived the Mars Rebellion, and led his troops through battles that should have killed them all. Humanity had always faced impossible odds. They had always survived. Get everything, Day ordered. Every piece of data, every technical specification, every warning. We're taking it all back to Earth. If we're about to face the biggest threat humanity has ever seen, we're going to be ready. As they worked to download the Velthara's knowledge, Day looked at the hologram projector one more time. The ancient aliens had predicted humanity's rise, had watched them from across time, had prepared gifts for warriors they would never meet. The question now was simple. Would the prophecy be right? Would humanity ascend, or would they join the Velthara in extinction? Day didn't know the answer, but he knew one thing for certain. Humanity would face this threat the only way they knew how. Fighting. 6 months passed faster than anyone wanted. The news of the Velthara vault had spread across Earth and all human colonies. Some people celebrated, believing it proved humanity was special, chosen for greatness. Others panicked, preparing for the end times. Most people just went about their lives hoping the scientists and military would handle whatever was coming. Day wished he had their luxury of hope. He stood on the bridge of the warship Defiant, watching the empty darkness of space. The ship was one of 50 in the new defensive fleet, built using modified Velthara technology. They were stronger than any human ships before, but Day had seen what the swarm could do in the ancient recordings. He wasn't sure 50 ships would be enough. He wasn't sure 1,000 would be enough. Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from New Haven Colony, the communications officer announced. They're under attack. Day's blood ran cold. New Haven was home to 2 million people, mostly families and researchers. It was supposed to be safe, far from any danger. Show me. The screen flickered to life, showing chaos. Dark shapes swarmed through the colony's streets, tearing apart buildings and people with equal efficiency. They looked like insects made of metal and shadow, moving with horrible purpose. The Devourer swarm had arrived. All ships battle formation, Day commanded. We jumped to New Haven in 30 seconds. This is what we trained for. The jump through space took only moments, but when they arrived, New Haven was already half destroyed. The colony's defense systems were firing constantly, but the swarm simply absorbed the damage and kept coming. For every unit destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Target the larger clusters, Day ordered. Weapons free. The fleet opened fire, and for a few minutes it looked like they were winning. Human weapons, enhanced with Velthara technology, tore through the swarm units like paper. But then more came, and more. The swarm was endless. Hana's voice came through on Day's private channel. She was back on Earth, studying the Velthara archives with a team of scientists. Day, I found something. The swarm doesn't think like us. It's more like a computer program than a living thing. It follows patterns, repeats strategies that worked before. How does that help us? Dee asked, watching 3 of his ships take heavy damage. Because humans don't follow patterns, Hana said. The Velthara fought defensively, protecting their worlds, waiting for the swarm to come to them. They lost because they were too predictable. But human military history is full of crazy, unpredictable tactics. Guerrilla warfare, surprise attacks, sacrifices plays. Things that don't make logical sense but work anyway. Day understood immediately. The Velthara were more advanced, but they thought like scientists and engineers. Humans thought like survivors. Ari, do you still have those old war documentaries I sent you? Ari Shin, now commanding her own ship in the fleet, laughed grimly. The ones about Earth's ancient wars? Yeah, I watched them all. You thinking what I'm thinking? Change of tactics, Day announced to the fleet. Stop fighting like a defensive wall. We're going to fight like humans. Split into small groups, hit and run attacks, target their weak points, and retreat before they can respond. Make them chase us into traps. Confuse them. The fleet broke formation and the real battle began. Human ships danced around the swarm, attacking from unexpected angles, retreating when the enemy pursued, leading them into ambushes. It was messy, chaotic, and completely unpredictable. The swarm, programmed to respond to logical defensive strategies, couldn't adapt fast enough. It's working, Tay shouted from his engineering station. He had insisted on coming aboard the Defiant, claiming his skills were needed in combat. The swarm is slowing down, trying to calculate our next move, but we're not giving it time to think. By the time the battle ended, the swarm had been pushed back, not destroyed but forced to retreat. It was the first time in 3 million years that anyone had made the Devourer swarm retreat. But the victory came at a terrible cost. New Haven colony was destroyed, 1 million people dead, 15 human ships lost, and this was just the first battle. Over the next 3 months, the swarm attacked 12 more colonies. Each time, human forces responded faster, fought smarter. Each time they won. But each time, thousands died. Whole worlds were evacuated. Populations moved to safer systems. The galaxy was watching, and they were terrified. Dave found himself in a strange position. Other alien species, civilizations that had existed for millions of years, started asking Earth for help. The Luminar Collective, peaceful beings of pure energy, requested human military advisors. The Resonance Empire, a trading alliance of 6 species, wanted to learn human combat tactics. Hyun Lee, a strategic commander from Earth's military academy, was assigned to teach alien forces how to fight like humans. He arrived on the Luminar homeworld with presentations about Earth's military history, showing battles from ancient times to the modern age. "This is barbaric," one Luminar representative said, watching footage of human warfare. "How can you celebrate such violence?" "We don't celebrate it," Hyun replied calmly. "We learn from it. Every battle, every war, every conflict in human history taught us something about survival. You call it barbaric. We call it experience. And right now that experience is the only thing keeping the galaxy alive." The words were harsh but true. The peaceful species had never developed weapons of war. The diplomatic species had always negotiated their way out of conflict. But you couldn't negotiate with the swarm. You couldn't make peace with something that only existed to consume. Back on Earth, Mina Bay made a breakthrough. She was a neuroscientist studying how humans could use the Velthura weapons. The weapons were designed to be activated by thought patterns, but they only responded to certain types of thinking. Logical, mathematical thinking didn't work. But creative, emotional, chaotic thinking did. The Velthara designed these weapons for us specifically, Mina explained in her report. They knew their own people couldn't use them effectively. Too logical, too rigid in their thinking. But humans, we think sideways. We see solutions in chaos. We make connections that don't seem to make sense but somehow work. She was right. Human soldiers using Velthara weapons were 3 times more effective than the Velthara themselves had ever been. Not because humans were smarter or stronger, but because they thought differently. Day received a communication from the Galactic Council, a group representing the oldest and most powerful civilizations in known space. They wanted to meet with him. When he arrived at their massive station, orbiting a neutron star at the edge of civilized space, he expected demands or criticism. Instead, they offered him command of the entire Allied fleet. Every ship, every species, every weapon in the galaxy would answer to him. A human barely 300 years into space travel would command civilizations millions of years old. "Why me?" He asked the Council's leader, a crystalline being that spoke through vibrations. "Because you win," the being replied simply. "We have fought the swarm for 3 million years across multiple cycles. We have always lost. But you in 6 months have done what we could not in millennia. You make the swarm retreat. You give us hope. The prophecy was right. Humanity is what we needed." Day accepted the position because he had no choice. The swarm was growing stronger, pushing deeper into civilized space. More colonies fell. More people died. Human casualties were in the billions now, but they kept fighting. They always kept fighting. As Day stood on the bridge of his new flagship, commanding the largest military force in galactic history, he thought about the Velthara prophecy. They had predicted humanity would face this trial. They had predicted courage and sacrifice, but they hadn't predicted victory. That part was still unwritten. That part was up to humanity to decide. The Velthara homeworld was a graveyard. Hana stood on what had once been a beautiful city, now reduced to crystallized ruins. The swarm had consumed this world 3 million years ago, and nothing had grown here since. The planet was dead in a way that made Mars look alive by comparison. "Are you sure about this?" Ari asked, her hand never far from her weapon. She had volunteered to protect Hana on this expedition. Even though everyone knew if the swarm returned, no amount of weapons would save them. The vault on Mars was just an outpost, Hana explained, carefully stepping over broken structures that might have been homes once. But this was their capital. If there are answers about the prophecy, about why they chose humanity, they'll be here. Tay was scanning the ruins with his equipment, following energy signatures that most people couldn't even detect. "I'm reading something big underground. Looks like another vault, but much larger than the one on Mars." They found the entrance beneath what might have been a government building or temple. It was hard to tell after 3 million years of decay. The door opened the same way as before, responding to Hana's touch as if it had been waiting specifically for her. Inside, the vault was enormous. Walls covered in data crystals that held more information than all of Earth's libraries combined. In the center stood another hologram projector, but this one was different. More complex, more detailed, more important. Hana activated it with shaking hands. The Velthara appeared again, but this one looked older, more tired. "If you are watching this, you have found our true legacy. You have come to our homeworld seeking answers. We will give them to you, though the truth may be difficult to accept." The hologram shifted, showing the galaxy from above, billions of stars spread across the darkness. "We told you we could predict the future, that we foresaw your rise through prophecy." That was not entirely true. The Velthara did not merely predict your existence. "We created you." Hana felt her legs go weak. Ari grabbed her arm, keeping her standing. "What does it mean, created us?" Ari whispered. The hologram continued. 3 million years ago, when we realized the swarm would destroy us, we began a desperate project. We studied every world in the galaxy, searching for planets that could develop intelligent life. We found thousands of possibilities, but one world stood out. A blue planet covered in water, with extreme weather, constant natural disasters, and predators at every level of its food chain. A world that would force any species to become tough, adaptable, and clever to survive. We called this world Earth. Images of ancient Earth appeared. Dinosaurs, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, meteors striking the surface. A world that was beautiful and deadly in equal measure. "We did not create life on Earth," the Velthara explained. "Life already existed there, but we influenced it. Subtle genetic markers, small evolutionary nudges over millions of years. We wanted to create a species that was everything we were not. Aggressive where we were peaceful. Creative where we were logical. Stubborn where we were accepting. We needed warriors, and Earth's harsh environment would forge them." Hana was crying now, though she couldn't say exactly why. "They made us. We're not natural. We're designed." "Keep listening," Tay said quietly. He looked shaken too, but something in the hologram's tone suggested there was more to the story. "We seeded 50 worlds with similar genetic influences," the Velthara continued. 50 chances to create a species that could fight the swarm. Most failed. Some worlds destroyed themselves with war before reaching the stars. Others became too peaceful, losing the edge we tried to cultivate. Others never developed intelligence at all. But Earth succeeded beyond our greatest hopes. The hologram showed human history, the rise of civilization, art and music, mathematics and science, but also war, conquest, struggle, and survival. Humanity's best and worst moments displayed like a documentary. "You became what we needed," the Velthara said, "but you also became more than we expected. You developed compassion alongside aggression. You created beauty while learning to destroy. You formed bonds with each other that we never fully understood. You were supposed to be weapons, but you became something far more complex. You became human." The hologram's tone changed, becoming almost sad. "We leave you with this knowledge and this choice. You can reject your design nature, turn away from conflict, and try to become a peaceful species. But if you do, you will likely fail against the swarm as we did. Or you can embrace what you are, Accept that you were created as weapons, but choose what kind of weapons you will be. Fight with purpose. Fight with honor. Fight not because you were designed to, but because you choose to. The hologram faded, leaving them in silence. For a long time, nobody spoke. What could you say when you learned your entire species was engineered by aliens as a living weapon? We need to tell Day, Ari finally said. He needs to know this before the next battle. We need to tell everyone, Hannah said, wiping her eyes. Humanity deserves to know the truth about where we came from. Do they? Tay asked. What happens when people learn they were designed? That their free will might be an illusion? That every war, every struggle, every death in human history was part of someone else's plan? Hannah had no answer. They spent 3 more days in the vault, downloading every piece of data they could find. Technical specifications for weapons humanity didn't know were possible. Historical records of the Velthara's rise and fall, and most importantly, detailed information about the swarm's structure, weaknesses, and the location of its central control nexus. When they returned to Earth, Hannah went straight to the World Council. Representatives from every nation and colony gathered to hear her report. She told them everything. The truth about humanity's creation, the Velthara's manipulation of human evolution, the purpose behind their design. The reaction was chaos. Some people felt betrayed. Learning their existence was engineered. Religious leaders debated whether humans even had souls if they were created by aliens instead of gods. Philosophers argued about the nature of free will and destiny. But then Jin Yoon, a philosopher who had been studying the Velthara data, stood up to speak. He was old, respected, and known for his wisdom. I have read the Velthara records carefully, he said, and I have one observation to share. The Velthara designed our bodies, influenced our evolution, created the conditions for our development, but they did not design our choices. The council chamber quieted, everyone listening. Every act of kindness in human history was our choice, Jin continued. Every piece of art, every scientific discovery, every moment of love and friendship. Those were not programmed into us. The Velthara gave us the capacity for violence, yes, but we developed the capacity for mercy on our own. They made us survivors, but we chose to be more than that. We chose to be human. In the back of the chamber, Nario stood up. She was a survivor of the first swarm attack, one of the few who had escaped New Haven Colony alive. I don't care who designed my DNA, she said, her voice strong despite her obvious pain. My family died fighting the swarm. My friends died protecting others so they could escape. Those deaths, those sacrifices, those meant something. We didn't fight because we were programmed to fight. We fought because we chose to protect each other. The choice makes us human, not our genetics. The debate continued for days, but slowly a consensus emerged. Humanity would accept the truth of their origins, but reject the idea that it defined them. They were created as weapons, yes, but they would choose what kind of weapons they would be. Day received the report while preparing for the largest military operation in human history. The Allied forces had located the swarm's central nexus, the massive bioconstruct that generated new swarm units. Destroying it would cripple the swarm forever, but it was protected by defenses that had destroyed entire fleets. Sir, one of his officers asked, do you think it matters that we were designed? Day thought about his parents who had taught him honor and duty. He thought about his crew, who had followed him into impossible battles. He thought about the billions of humans who had died fighting the swarm, not because they were programmed to, but because they chose to protect others. No, Day said finally. It doesn't matter how we started. What matters is what we choose to do now, and we choose to fight, not because the Velthara designed us to, but because it's the right thing to do. The fleet prepared for the final assault. Humanity knew the truth now. They were created to be warriors, but they would fight as humans, and that made all the difference. The Galactic Council station looked like a small moon, hanging in the darkness between stars. Inside its massive halls, representatives from 40 different species gathered for an emergency session. Day stood at the center, feeling very small and very human among beings that had existed for millions of years. This is unprecedented, said the Luminar representative, its energy form flickering with anxiety. We are considering placing a species barely 3 centuries into space travel in command of the entire Galactic Defense Force. It's not just unprecedented, it's necessary, replied the Resonance Empire's ambassador, a being that looked like living crystal. In 8 months, humans have achieved what we could not in 3 million years. They have pushed back the swarm, won battles we thought unwinnable, and shown us that survival is possible. An older species, the architects, sent their representative forward. They were among the first intelligent species in the galaxy, so ancient that they remembered when stars were younger. We have reviewed human military history extensively, the architect said in a voice like grinding stone. What we found disturbs us. Humans have been at war with each other for their entire existence. They have created weapons to destroy their own people. They have committed atrocities we cannot comprehend, and now we want to give them command of every weapon in the galaxy? Day had known this question would come. He stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. You're right. Human history is full of violence and mistakes. We've done terrible things to each other, but we've also learned from those mistakes. Every war taught us something. Every conflict showed us the cost of fighting. We know how terrible war is because we've lived it. That's exactly why we know how to win this one. The swarm is different, the architect countered. It is not like your human enemies. It cannot be reasoned with, cannot be frightened, cannot surrender. Exactly, Day said, which is why you need us. We understand enemies that cannot be reasoned with. We've faced them before in our own history. Not on this scale, but the principles are the same. Fight smart, fight hard, and never give up. The council voted. It was close, but the decision was made. Day was appointed Supreme Commander of the Allied Defense Force. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier in the galaxy would follow his orders. It was the greatest responsibility any human had ever held, and the weight of it felt crushing. Sung Kang arrived at the council station 3 days later. He was an admiral from Earth's fleet, known for his unconventional tactics and his ability to teach complicated strategies in simple terms. Day had requested him specifically to train the alien forces in human combat doctrines. They're not going to like what you teach them, Day warned him privately. Sung smiled grimly. They don't have to like it. They just have to survive. The training sessions were difficult. Sung showed alien commanders footage of human battles, explaining tactics that seemed wasteful or reckless to species that had always fought conservatively, flanking maneuvers that left forces vulnerable, sacrifice plays where some ships would die so others could win, kamikaze attacks that traded one life for many enemy units. This is madness, one alien commander protested. You're asking soldiers to die deliberately. No, Sung corrected. I'm asking soldiers to choose what they die for. Every human who goes into combat knows they might not come back, but they go anyway because they're protecting something more important than themselves. That willingness to sacrifice, that's what makes the difference. Slowly, the alien forces began to understand. They practiced human tactics, learned human strategies, and most importantly, learned to think like humans. Not logically, not cautiously, but with creativity and determination that defied pure reason. Ari was given command of an entire battle group, mixing human ships with alien vessels. She developed new tactics that combined human aggression with alien technology. Her fleet became known as the Ghost Runners because they would appear without warning, strike hard, and vanish before the swarm could respond. How do you decide when to attack? A Luminar officer asked her after a particularly successful mission. I don't decide based on logic, Ari explained. I feel it. I watch how the swarm moves, and I look for the moment when they're not expecting us. It's instinct intuition. Humans are good at that. Back on Earth, Tay was leading a team of engineers in a desperate race against time. They were combining Velthara technology with human ingenuity to create new weapons. The results were impressive and terrifying. Plasma cannons that could cut through swarm armor like butter, missiles that learned from each attack, adapting to enemy defenses, shield generators that could protect entire planets. The Velthara designed these weapons, but they never used them to their full potential. Tay explained to his team. They thought too carefully, too cautiously. But we can be reckless. We can push these systems beyond their supposed limits and see what happens. What if they explode? One of his engineers asked nervously. Then we learn from the explosion and try again, Tay said with a grin. That's human engineering. The weapons worked. More importantly, they worked better than anyone expected. Within 6 months, the Allied fleet was equipped with weapons that made the swarm's defenses obsolete. For the first time in 3 million years, civilizations across the galaxy began to believe they could actually win. But the cost was staggering. Human casualties had reached into the trillions. Entire colonies were wiped out. Earth itself had been attacked twice, its population cut in half. Every human family had lost someone to the war. The galaxy was being saved, but humanity was paying the price. Yuna Zhang, a diplomat from Earth, traveled between alien worlds asking for help. Not military help, but resources, supplies, and support for the human refugees who had lost their homes. She stood before councils and parliaments, showing them the reality of human sacrifice. "We are dying for you," she told the Resonance Empire's parliament. "Human children are growing up without parents. Human colonies are becoming graveyards. We don't do this because we were designed to. We do this because it's right. But we cannot continue to bear this burden alone. If you want us to save the galaxy, you need to help us survive." Her words struck a chord. Slowly, alien species that had never contributed to military efforts began sending aid: food, medical supplies, construction materials to rebuild destroyed colonies. The Luminar Collective, beings of pure energy who could not fight, began housing human refugees in their dimension where the swarm could not reach them. The galaxy was changing. Species that had never cooperated were working together. Civilizations that had been rivals for millions of years were now allies. And all of it was because humanity had shown them something they had forgotten: hope. Day received a message from the Velthara Vault on Mars. The archives had activated a new message, one that only appeared after certain conditions were met. He watched as the hologram explained the final verse of the prophecy. "When the young warriors embrace their purpose, they shall ascend beyond their maker's dreams," the Velthara said. "We designed you to fight, but you have become more than fighters. You have become leaders, teachers, and inspirations. You have shown the galaxy that survival requires not just strength, but heart. This is your ascension, not to become gods or rulers, but to become what the galaxy needed most: hope." The Allied forces were ready. Intelligence reports confirmed the location of the swarm's central nexus, a massive structure the size of a small moon that generated new swarm units constantly. Destroying it would require the largest military operation in galactic history. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier who could fight would be needed. The plan was simple in concept, but devastating in execution. Half the fleet would attack directly, drawing the swarm's defenses. The other half would infiltrate the nexus itself, planting a weapon deep inside its core. The Velthara had designed this weapon 3 million years ago, intending to use it as a last resort. It would collapse the nexus and create a chain reaction, destroying the entire swarm network across the galaxy. The problem was clear. The infiltration team would not survive. The nexus would collapse with them inside. It was a suicide mission, and everyone knew it. "I'll lead the infiltration," Day announced to his command staff. "I'm not asking anyone to do something I won't do myself." "With respect, sir, that's a terrible idea," Ari said. "The fleet needs you. I'll lead the infiltration team." "We both will," Hana said, stepping forward. "The weapon needs someone who understands Velthara technology." "That's me. And it needs an engineer to make sure it actually works," Tay added. "So I'm going too." Day looked at his team, the people who had been with him since the beginning. They had found the Velthara Vault together, fought the first battles together, and now they would end this together. "Then we go together," Day said. "All of us. One last mission." The fleet prepared for the final assault. Millions of soldiers, thousands of ships, dozens of species all united under one purpose. The battle would decide the fate of the galaxy. Either the swarm would be destroyed or everything would be consumed. As Day stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at the stars one last time, he thought about the prophecy. The Velthara had predicted humanity's rise, but they hadn't predicted this. They hadn't predicted that their weapons would become heroes,